Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Knights of the Alternate Histories. I got a new microphone, so let me know how it sounds, and we're going to be continuing our American Divided series. This is part 5, so I would suggest watching the first ones front to beginning if you haven't been watching them, or it's been a while, because it's been a while. Yeah, we're almost at 1,500 subscribers, which is exciting, and yeah, let's get into the alternate history, because that is fun! We left off somewhere in the 2060s with the map looking like this. Deseret and its puppets with an expansionist views, and Texas having its own expansionist views, and seeing Deseret as the biggest threat, these two are ready to go to war. But the Southern Confederation, with the South being relatively new to Texas, wouldn't have their troops laid yet, and Deseret, not wanting those troops to be put across the border, would have to strike soon. Deseret would fire the first shot, sending all of its troops across the border and making pretty good progress, except between the Mexican puppet states, one side clearly beating the other. And as these sides clash, the Southern Confederation would have to get its troops over to Texas, but Deseret preparing for the invasion would have all its puppets' troops, while the Southern Confederation, not being required to by Texas, would soon take it, and Deseret with better industry would not have as much development as Deseret does, which would slowly hurt them, as Deseret would push more and more in, trying to slowly take over the majority of the state. But the Texans would start retreating and adopt a burning Moscow story, while trying to protect their own without losing as much as they possibly can. This is the reason why that a lot of the battles would be Deseret victories, because Texas would be retreating more. Now, Deseret would continue winning these battles and start getting pretty confident, stretching their supply lines and taking troops off of the Northern Confederation border, hoping that they don't attack because they see how much they're winning against Texas, and if Texas collapses, no one can stop them. And this would be looking a pretty good offer. Making its way to the old Arkansas-Louisiana border is where Texas would make their stand, now having their allies supporting them and a majority of their army, because the only battles Deseret did win were minority armies that were supposed to be there or ended up getting caught in a crossfire where they were trying to burn. So, the majority of both armies would collide, and it would be disastrous for Deseret. Being overconfident and cocky, they would start to lose land. Seeing this, Mexico would take their chance, trying to take both of their old territories back and maybe some new ones, invading Baja as well as the two puppet states set up by Deseret and Texas respectively. And this would overall be really successful. The people still not wanting to be puppet states and wanting to rejoin Mexico now for a while would basically welcome them in, and their own home armies would start to flee, including on the battlefield. They would also start taking parts of southern Texas, and would have a really good Peninsula campaign, though this would be the only naval action in the war, as the Californian/Deseret navies collide with the Mexican one, in a glorious display of battle. But the Peninsula War would be an interesting display in this major war, being known as the Third American Civil War. And as more troops start marching in, more of them, the naval base that they were trying to protect would be the only dividing line between the Texan forces and the Mexican forces, sort of being in an alliance, but really an uneasy truth, much like the Soviets and the Allies during World War II. This would be the time to strike and take out the major Utah or Deseret naval forces all at once in the Atlantic Sea, stopping the trade and reopening it. But Mexico, expecting to take the land that their military conquered and that Texas lost, and Texas expecting things to go back to normal and maybe giving Mexico 1 or 2 different counties, would come into disagreement, and Mexico would sign a peace with both Texas and Deseret, just saying, we're keeping what we're keeping, and if you want to continue fighting us, we'll fight you, but you're gonna have to fight the other guy too. So Mexico would taking their most land, and the puppet state of Baja California would become Northern Baja. And, as well, the Midwestern Confederation would join and start invading from the north. Seeing that since Mexico lost the war, Deseret can just push, they should join too. And with the Northern Confederation's alliances being broken, they would have to choose, and they would lean towards Texas and their allies, but not wanting to get engulfed by the Deseret horde, they would lay off. Meanwhile, New York would continue its expansion, but would slowly get cut off and eventually destroyed. And Texas, not expecting this sudden attack from the north, would lose most of its Confederation troops as they come down from above and from the side, overall destroying them. But the Northern Confederation would join and slam into both Michigan, New York, and above all around. This would be disastrous, especially if they were to lose the middle, which it looked more like they were doing, as Deseret already thought that the Northern Confederation would lean towards them and not having troops on their border, and the Midwestern Confederation thinking that they were allies and they wouldn't attack them, would be disastrous. Though the two major war leaders would make one deal. Whatever the turnouts of the war is, America would be united, and they would respect that. They wouldn't try and rebel again. They would just respect that they're now united and wouldn't do any horrible war crimes or infringe upon any of their rights for choosing the wrong side of history. And as they shook their hands, they would begin fighting again. As you can see, the states are now integrated with each other, including Northern Baja as a puppet state. And this is when the true war would begin. Now, people choosing their sides based on ideologies rather than their loyalties to the states. Deseret believing in more of a Republican type of government, and Texas believing in more democratic. And Texas, knowing that their side would win if they just destroyed the lifeline between the Midwest and the West, would push all their troops towards it. Losing some land in the process, but now the Midwest is just over basically, and the West, well, they're a little bit different, but they stay united. Slowly, the Midwest would start to surrender, and the West would begin the long push. The Rocky Mountains, once again, would be their saving grace, being the only thing that protects them, and guerrilla warfare would be pretty effective in these Rockies, but they could see the writing on the wall, and they would try and defend, hoping that maybe they could get one last major victory to win the war, but overall, now with the Rockies and the former Colorado River being all that was left, the US would be united at last. Deseret would surrender and its puppets would integrate, and overall it would be really peaceful with a few guerrilla warfare campaigns, but overall nothing bad really happened. So, not much more to talk about. Now, the US united, the two most powerful states would get to decide the capital, and they would put it in a middle ground in Santa Fe, New Mexico, hoping that this would be a good little area to set up. But, don't be aware, America has changed for this, for the better, or for the worse, with new, unique cultures all around, that truly are American distinction. Hope you enjoyed this video. Yeah, I have a new mic, and I know it might sound a little bit quiet, and I tried doing it, but my lips are literally right up to the microphone, and I think I need to adjust my sound volume on it. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed. Really fun to make as always. Almost 1,500 subscribers, so yeah, like and subscribe. And yeah, hopefully everything is pretty cool. And whoa, is that a new background? Oh, so cool. Anyways, the video on the left, well, that's a video I recommend. And the video on the right, well, that's something Timmy would be like. And you wouldn't want to be like Timmy, right? Good.